Thank you, everyone, for being on. We're thrilled to have you guys with us. After last week when we had trouble, I sent a note to a couple of the people that were online, and one of them wrote back and said, "I just told my students, see, we are part of the bleeding edge of technology. We got to figure out how to do this sometimes." So, thank you both for being with us. I think one of the big questions that we get from a lot of students as we do our programs is, we want to work for a company like Google. We want to prepare ourselves for a career, and so we are thrilled to have with us today two Googlers. Aaron Dodson and Kamar Galloway are both Googlers. They have figured out how to work for Google, and they're nice enough to be with us today to share some of their thoughts on what it takes to go to work for Google and what you can do today to start preparing yourself for an exciting career like that. So, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Why don't you take it away, and we'll go from here.
Okay. I guess just quick introduction. I'm Aaron Dodson.
And I'm Kamar Galloway.
And I don't know, you want to get started?
Yeah, so we're both computer science teaching fellows. And so our job is to educate young people or young minds right now, K through 12, and get them inspired about computer science. And so my pathway to computer science started at a young age. In middle school, I was tinkering with different things, didn't really know what it was. But I was also a problem solver, and so I love solving any physical problem. And as I got older and got into high school, I began to program a little bit more about building websites and not anything professional, but I was just interested in computers. Like, what can it actually do? Is it fun? Is it cool? And so I was one of those kind of kids. And so I didn't think nothing about Google as a kid. I wasn't, fascinated so much about software or tech companies. But it wasn't until I got to college and I experienced it firsthand that I fell in love with it. Until like now, I really want to give back and kind of see the piece that I missed out as a child and give it back to students like middle school and high school. And so I'll let Aaron talk about his experience, and then we can get into particular questions about how do you get involved at a young age.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of have a similar story. I got started in computer science around when I was about 13 or so. At that time, I had a Mac, and that was back in the day when not very many people used Macs still. And so I wanted a program to keep track of my homework assignments, and there weren't any for OS X at that point, so I decided that I would write one. And just started off with the developer tools and some of the example code they had, and just sort of started trying to figure out how it did what it did, and then just change one little thing about it. Maybe add a button to do something, or make it so that it saves as soon as I close the window and I don't have to choose file save, and just kind of grew from that. By the time I got to college, I knew that I wanted to do something with computer science. I majored in computer science at UC Santa Barbara. And basically, I got involved with some undergraduate research with a professor of mine there. We were looking into using GitHub and studio-based learning to sort of see what effect that might have on learning outcomes in university-level computer science courses. And he saw a job posting, referred me to it. I applied, and here I am. So, yeah, like Kamar was saying, if you have specific questions, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a couple.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I guess one of the things that I hear a lot from students is why are science and math important, and how does a strong background in those two fields really help you from a career perspective?
I'll go. And so for me, I love math as a kid, right? I love challenges, and that was just something that I fell in love with. So I didn't know why it was important, but I love a challenge, and so math came easy to me at the time. But really and truly, math and science is really, really important to everything, because it's the foundation behind a lot of other subject areas. if you can't do, proper math, or you don't understand science itself, do you really understand the basic level of life, essentially? And so how that relates to computer science is interesting, because computer science relates to a lot of other subjects. So like, computer science is a very hard thing to define, but the way you think as a computer scientist applies to many areas like music and sports and so many different arenas. And so being able to understand something very, very at its core level and applying it to things that you like is kind of how I treated math and science, and how it relates to computer science now that I'm here at Google.
So I guess I would echo a lot of what Kamar just said there. And really, the why math and science is important, it comes down to, it's a tool to amplify the kind of impact you might have doing whatever you love. So if you wanted to become a doctor, for example, I mean, that's fantastic. You're helping people. You're making a big difference in the world. If you're a doctor who also has a foundation in computer science, you might be able to make the leap and say, hey, this software that we have for keeping track of patients and, their medical issues or medications, it's really unintuitive. Like, it's hard to find what you're doing. Doctors may make mistakes or prescribe the wrong medication or something, but you have the background to make something better. So not only are you able to help the people that you're helping as a doctor, you're able to create software that allows other doctors to benefit in the same way that you do. And really, that can apply to any field. If you're interested in law, medicine, the arts, it just is something that lets you connect with other people and make a bigger difference than you'd be able to make on your own without it.
Yeah, and I think, to say what Aaron was saying, it's really about fixing something. So like, once you see something like it's a problem, naturally you always look to, well, who can I find to fix this problem, right? You're always trying to pass off the responsibility. But as a computer scientist, you can actually diagnose the problem, because you're already experiencing the problem right now, and you're better fit for answering it. So when you have some type of coding or programming background, you can start analyzing the situation and then begin to fix the problem, which is really so fulfilling for anybody in any field.
I had a conversation with a group of students last year where this issue came up, and one of the little 9th grade girls raised her hand and she said, it's easy to understand why you need a strong background in math and science. When I am in my math and science class, I'm solving problems. When I'm in my other classes, I'm just learning facts and giving them back to you. With my phone and with Google, I can give you any facts you want in a matter of a couple of minutes.
Right.
And so, but the world needs people that solve problems, and I think that way. I thought that was just really a good answer. If anyone on the line has questions, please go ahead and put them in through the chat. If not, I'm going to continue to dominate, and because I get a whole bunch of questions, even though I'm an old guy. But fellas, we hear a lot about how challenging the interview process is at Google, and some of the difficult questions and kinds of things that get asked. Can you kind of help us understand what you did to prepare for your interview at Google, and what kinds of experiences you had in that process?
You want to go first this time, or?
Oh, sure. Okay. So I guess for my part, I mean, a lot of it, just comes from my experience in college, was really great preparation. And I think for us, it's a little different than it may be in some cases, because we're doing the Computer Science Teaching Fellows program. And so a lot of what we do relates to education. We're not just dealing with programming like a software engineer might be. But at the same time, a lot of the same things apply. So it's really a matter of being able to think on your feet. And even if you don't know an answer at first, just talk through what you're thinking. So, I was presented with a couple of questions, and it wasn't just a matter of, oh, it's X. It was, okay, so we can assume that this is true, and then that suggests this other thing, and just kind of build off of that. And talking out loud really shows that you have a deep understanding of the problem and a good approach to problem solving. And so in the lead up for my interview, I just sort of thought through that stuff, looked, for common interview questions, made a point to think about, the touchy-feely stuff too. There's plenty of technical, but, it's important to have a good grasp on you and what you want from the job and be ready for any of those sort of questions too. Just try and consider a broad range of possibilities, I think, was the main approach I took.
Yeah. For me, I took a different approach. I actually focused on behavioral-based questions because I had a couple of job experiences that was in the computer science field throughout college, and so I felt good about the technical aspects of it. And so I asked myself, like, if we were to be like, think about the time when you were in a situation where you had a disgruntled employee. Like, how did you handle that situation? I'm like, oh, that happened once before when I was in college and I was working on a senior design project, and tomorrow was the deadline, and it was like our project wasn't done. Like, what do you do, right? So I tried to really figure out what I actually did in that situation and then break it down piece by piece so that it made sense. But like to say what Aaron said, like the biggest piece of it was just really focusing on a problem and then how you would solve that problem. And what makes it easy is that there's no one right solution, right? Like there's multiple ways to solve a problem, and so if you can explain yourself in a decent manner, that's okay. And so that's kind of how I approached it.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's talk a little bit about your experiences in high school.
Okay.
Since most of these students are high school students, what kinds of, not just within the classroom, I'm a strong believer that that you're the result of all of the experiences that you have, not just your classroom. So what things other than what you study do you think you did in high school that prepared you for going to work for Google?
I'll start off. So in high school, I played sports. I wasn't in any tech-related clubs. I did Spanish club, actually. It was my first club my junior year of high school. But I played 4 years of football, 3 years of varsity baseball, so I just love sports. And I think being in sports and having a coach, you have to follow instructions because you're not the coach. It's not a one-man team. And so when I was, going to college and so forth, I already knew how to fit into a team. I knew how, when times got hard, well, it's time for me to step up. I knew when things were good and people had things to say, well, it's time for me to sit back. Because, in a team or in any really team sport, like you can't do it by yourself. You need people to rely on. And so I've experienced that throughout my entire life, but really in high school when I had coaches and people and friends and they all came to my games and it was like, this is a team. It's not about Kumar. It's about the team. So I attribute that to a lot of my success.
And so I guess for my part, I was really fortunate to go to a high school that had AP Computer Science, and I took APCSA and APCSAB, which is no more now, the latter. But that was a really great experience. We also had a senior thesis that was required at my high school, and so I did mine on development and marketing of a Mac OS X shareware application. So my senior year of high school.
Could you translate that back to English?
Sure. Basically, building and selling an app. Like this was, a few years back, before mobile was as big of a thing as it was now. So it was a application for OS X kind of to help you write research papers. So there was a web browser and a text editor, bibliography manager, and I just documented the process of creating that and trying to get people to want to buy it. And that gave me some great, real world experience of what really goes into working with software. And working with people too. I mean, part of this is, I have to deal with people emailing me asking, hey, how does this work? What do I need to do to make this happen? And that
I did with the Hangout here for a few minutes.
and that's really a very important thing in CS working at Google. It's great to be able to communicate with people effectively and make it so that it's not just you who understands something, so that you can explain it to anybody.
Yeah, and I want to really solidify that point. Like our work culture is very collaborative, right? I'm not sure if you know, but sometimes the stereotypes of the computer scientists just go into a small room, cut the lights off, and just eat pizza all day. And it doesn't happen like that here at Google. And so like we work as a team. Like we have stand-up meetings where we all give our thoughts on a particular topic, and then we make a decision. And so like everything is very collaborative across the board.
Since one of the major programs that we have is an internship, program for high school students, and we've had over 1,200 students apply. So from a student perspective, I think it's pretty clear that a lot of people get it. But did either of you have any kind of internship experience or co-op experience in college that kind of helped point you in a direction?
Yeah, so in high school, my senior year, I actually finished my credits a little bit early, and so I actually taught keyboarding class at an elementary school. So it wasn't computer science, but it was like hands-on with small people. And so that was their first experience to a computer, if you think about it. Like, what is this thing called a keyboard? How does it work? What do I press to scroll down a page? So that was really interesting and fun experience in high school. And then in college, I actually had a couple internships at some other companies in California. One of them dealt with video teleconference, and so like now we're using Hangouts, but it's like pre-Hangout. So I worked on a little bit of that as an intern, so that was kind of fun. I was like, this is kind of cool, because you don't realize that a lot of things that you use, the basic knowledge behind it deals with code. Like things just work, but we don't understand why it works. So I was able for the first time to see how does video work across the internet, and that was impressive. This was like years ago when, like I said, Aaron said, like no one did this. We called people, like hanging out and FaceTiming, and Skype was kind of starting to come up. And so that was like my first really big interaction with software that actually touched users itself. So I love that.
And so I guess for me, I didn't have a formal internship. In college, though, I did go sort of the research route. So, I tried to seek out professors who were doing work I was interested in and work with them on their research, basically as a sort of research assistant position. And that, was also really valuable. It's sort of a two approaches to it, right? There's the industry and the academic approach, and I sort of went for the latter initially. And I had a lot of fun doing that. It was really great to learn something, and kind of without some of the pressures of being in a business environment.
Oh yeah, a lot of pressure.
Yeah. But at the same time, it was still really great preparation for eventually winding up in that situation.
So let's probe the pressures of working for Google. What kind of pressures are there?
I think the biggest pressure is being able to fail fast. And so in school they teach you have to be 100% correct. Like you get graded. If you miss a problem, it's like, no, I got a B or whatever the case may be. Where here it's accepted. Like if you fail, great. And I know it sounds weird because my first couple of months I struggled with that personally at Google because I'm used to getting things right the first time or keep trying and then it's like I feel good about it. Whereas here it's like you're kind of celebrated, like, yeah, you failed. We learned something from your failure and now we can continue to move forward. And so I think it's an interesting way to think about problems. But the good thing about that mindset is that you're not afraid. You see a problem and you just try it. And you get more comfortable with your coworkers and you just solve a problem over time. And there's like no right way. So you're able to naturally be more creative because you don't have any barriers like you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. So that was like the initial pressure when I got here, but now I'm more comfortable with that pressure because it's fun and more collaborative.
I guess another thing too is just dealing with scale. I mean, Google's a big company and we're trying to do really big things. And there's a big difference between making a little program for you or for a friend or something and making something, whether it's a program or an after-school club or a report or anything that's going to be influencing or impacting tens, hundreds, thousands of people.
Right.
And you kind of have to think about things in a different way and think about what happens. Okay, we're dealing with a few people now or a few computers now, but what happens when we're dealing with really big quantities? Is this still going to work well? Or are we going to have to take a different approach? And just keeping that in mind all the time.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Because I mean, you think I'll highlight this last point. Because if you think about it, when you go to Google search, like you just assume it's going to always work, right? It's like a lot of pressure on like Google stuff. It just normally works all the time. Gmail, Maps, Android, it just works. But there's a lot of pressure for it to always work and for people to be so reliable on those services. So we take that very highly.
Okay. All right. So what's a typical day like?
Wow, a typical day.
Is there such a thing?
Let's see. So
can be.
I mean, I guess, show up to work, get breakfast.
Yep.
Um,
Free breakfast,
yeah.
by the way, but go ahead.
Uh,
Most important meal of the day, your mother will tell you.
and very good at that. And,
Yeah.
sort of check in, email, calendar, see what's up on the schedule. If there's anything needs to be taken care of real quick with that, get that out of the way. I've been doing a lot of website work, so I sort of see like, okay, what sort of features are we looking at? Pick out something I'm going to focus on today, and just start working through them. And it's livened up, right? Because you got lunch in the middle. If you need to take a moment, get some time to clear your mind, get your thoughts together. We've got ways to do that. Just take a walk, go to the game room or something for a few moments.
Oh yeah.
And and it depends. I mean, because with our program, we're out in the community a lot of the time, leading after-school programs, coordinating with people who are volunteering for the schools to lead those programs, and so it gets mixed up. Some days that's the big focus, and it's not so much stuff that we're doing here.
Yeah, and so that's same thing, same process. I think for me, although I do work on some website stuff, I also think about like the curriculum that we're teaching, and so I want to make sure that it's easy to understand for both volunteers and students. And so I spend a lot of time trying to break down big problems and make it sound very, very easy to understand. And so once I do that, then I feel good about my content. Then I prep, and then I go out and teach it. But I do everything that Aaron does. Like I email, calendar, all that stuff, breakfast, ping pong at noon, just kind of liven it up a little bit, and then I'm on my way. So I like it a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. So one last question for both of you. What's Google going to look out like 10 years from now?
That's a big question.
Well, I can take first swing at that.
Yeah, I'll take the first swing at that. So I don't know.
I'm the Googler.
Yeah, I don't know for a fact the next 10 years, but I will say that it's very known that mobile is becoming more and more and more important. Like, I don't know if you know, but a lot of people's first experience with any computer is a mobile device, which is interesting. I had a dial-up, PC, when I was a kid, but now kids are like using smartphones as like their only device. And it's like, well, what is this laptop? I don't need it. I can do everything on my smartphone. So I would guess that mobile is going to be very, very big. There's this big wearable movement happening, and so watches and those kind of things are important. Google Glass is out now, and so who knows? Like, I mean, things could really change if we have glasses and watches that talk to each other, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to it myself.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
if you look at a phone, what it was 5 years ago,
Oh yeah.
and what it is today, it's totally different. And I've seen some studies that say something like 60% of the jobs 10 years from now, the technology hasn't even been invented yet.
Sounds about right.
And so it's not just knowing what you know today; it's knowing how to learn what you need to know tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fellas, this has been helpful, and we will be adding this to our to our website for people to watch. And sorry we haven't had a whole lot of interaction. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I think it will be very helpful. And so we'll get it up online. We'll delete the first 28 minutes of blank space, and I'm sure people will want to see. We thank you for the time that you've spent today, and we love the relationship we have with Google. We love what you guys are doing, and it's important for all of us to get the students of the future more savvy with the computer science, and hopefully you've helped us spread that word today. So we're going to sign off now. Any last comments, any last words, anything I didn't ask about, or things you're dying to say?
I guess, computer science is awesome. If you like doing things with computers, if you like being creative and really being able to use, the most powerful tool we have as humanity right now, and use it to its full extent. Go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. It's not uncool. It's awesome, and it gives you an incredible tool to really make a big difference in the world.
Yeah, so that was a great answer, Aaron. I would probably say that a lot of the things that people see as being computer science is not that difficult. And so, for instance, like people like Flappy Bird was very huge several weeks ago, and as people thought to themselves, maybe, well, that's just too difficult to build. But it's not that difficult. Like code.org has tutorials on how to build Flappy Bird, and they're all on online materials. And so, like, to build simple apps that people play is really easy to create on your own or in your spare time. And so I want people to think, like these little small apps on your smartphone are just really people behind these apps. They're not like huge companies like Google, for instance. So somebody is doing it, and it could be you. So that's what I have to say.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it, and we'll have this up online shortly.
Sounds great. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks again for your time.
All right.
Take care.